Today we're going to talk about designing your future in clinical mental health counseling. So this video lecture will address some things that you need to know as you map out your career goals and make plans for your credentialing. And the first thing that is good to know is that your future looks pretty bright. Mental health counseling is expected to continue to grow, and according to the pie chart in the center of your screen here, counselors now make up a larger piece of the pie of overall helping professionals. So we need people who are different players on the same team. So we've got psychiatrists over here in the green with only representing 9% of the overall behavioral health care provider helping professionals pie. And this is some statistics from 2014. Psychologists representing only 16%. Marriage and family therapists representing 7%, kind of a catch-all for others at 2%, and then over here on this half of the pie you have the two areas that are represented by workers with a master's degree in training and licensure, the social workers and the counselors. So you can see here that counselors are even larger than social workers and just expected to continue to grow. So you're in good company, and according to the statistics at the bottom of your screen, the field of counseling is expected to grow 29% in the United States between 2012 and 2022. SAMHSA is predicting that 10 to 20% more mental health and addiction treatment professionals will be needed by 2018. Many of you who started in 2015 will be graduating in 2018, so that looks pretty good in terms of job outlook for you all. Now, this information is different from region to region, and those job outlook statistics are going to vary. There are more counselors needed in rural communities, but those jobs might not become as prevalent in the rural communities as rapidly as jobs will open up in more of the urban environments. So my advice to students who come through our program is to be willing to look far and to increase your employability. If you're willing to move wherever you find your ideal job, then your chances of getting that ideal job are much greater than someone who is confined to one county or a small region of North Carolina. On the other hand, I do understand that people have families and ties to a certain area that maybe a partner with a job, and you can't always move. But it's not unusual for people to spend a little bit of time commuting to their jobs, and so just make sure you cast a wide circle when you are looking for another job. And we're here to help at the university, so please stay in contact with us as you go through the job search process, even after graduation. Some things that you need to be keeping in mind to take care of before you graduate are listed here on the screen, and I'm going to take some time to go through each of these. We try to also cover all of these during the field placement mandatory meetings, during your internship classes. We'll go over these, and I would also encourage you to talk a lot with your field placement supervisor about these processes. So when you are in field placement, ideally you will have a supervisor who is also an LPC, a licensed professional counselor, because that's the credential that you're seeking, and then they are able to give you some really good advice about exactly how to go through the becoming an LPC process. There are some students, though, that are paired up with an LCSW, a licensed clinical social worker, or a psychologist, or in some cases, much more rare, a psychiatrist. And in those situations, you can get excellent supervision and really learn about working with an interdisciplinary treatment team. However, they're going to be less attuned to what your unique credentialing process is. But again, just as with job seeking, when it comes to applying for licensure and doing all the things you need to do to be credentialed, just definitely keep in touch with us at the campus, and we'll help you through that process. So the first thing that you need to do before you graduate is to think about taking the National Counselor exam and completing the National Certified Counselor credential paperwork. We require that all of our students pass the CPCE, which is the comprehensive exam for counselors in our program. The CPCE, as you recall from your textbook, is strongly correlated to the National Counselor Exam. So first, during practicum, CNS 6100, you will complete the CPCE. How well you do on the CPCE is predictive of how well you'll do on your licensure exam, which is the NCE, the National Counselor Exam. In the state of North Carolina, you can take either the National Counselor Exam or the National Counseling Mental Health Exam, Comprehensive Exam, which is the NCMHCE listed here. This is just now being offered, this NCMHCE, to students who are in CACREP accredited programs. So you do have the option to take this NCMHCE. At this time, I would recommend that everybody stick to taking the National Counselor Exam. Unless you had a very, very strong score on your CPCE, and then I would say go ahead and try the NCMHCE. Again, that's a conversation for you to have with your advisor after you get your CPCE scores back. But during your internship, you'll take during your final internship, you'll have the option to take this exam and to do your paperwork. Doing your paperwork for the NCC credential during graduate school while you're still enrolled as a student streamlines that process, because immediately upon graduation from a CACREP accredited program with a passing NCE score, then you get to add these letters to the end of your name. So you'll have a master's degree and you'll have your first credential, the NCC. And that's just great. That's great to be able to go out into the field and immediately have a credential right after graduation. It takes a little bit longer to get the LPC. We'll talk about that in a minute. The NCC is the organization that oversees the NCC is the NBCC, the National Board of Certified Counselors. They are actually an international organization or have international outreach within their national organization, and are located though in Greensboro, North Carolina. They are a fantastic organization that does a lot of advocacy for counselors and helping our profession to advance forward. So every dollar that you spend towards your NCE or your NCC credential, you can be reassured that it's going back into NBCC and helping to pay for their lobbyists and their marketing and advancing research and giving students scholarships and so forth. So I definitely recommend that you all pursue this NCC in addition to your state level licensure. So these are the two exams to consider while you're in internship, and then you're also at the end of internship 2, you're going to need to make sure that your university instructor for that course, CNS 6120, is able to complete the verification of graduate counseling experience for your North Carolina licensure application. You can see what the verification of graduate counseling experience form looks like by going onto the board's website, which is the ncblpc.org. So you want to make sure that your instructor for CNS 6120 completes this verification of graduate counseling experience at the end of internship 2 for you. They will fill it out, put it in a sealed envelope, sign across the back of it, and they will mail it directly to the board themselves. This form is where all of your internship direct client contact hours, indirect client contact hours, and supervision hours are all documented. This is a form that you should try to get a copy of after your instructor completes it for you, and you should always, always, always keep track of all of your internship hours from your master's degree. If you go on to move to another state years down the road after being licensed in North Carolina, it is possible that that other state may want to have verification of your graduate counseling experience. So you will need to document and save all of those hours. Another good thing to do while you're in your final semester of internship is to go ahead and complete the LPCA paperwork. We have the application in a PDF form and in a URL link on our Blackboard site. And so you want to go ahead and get that paperwork completed, and you want to notify the board that you'd like to be reviewed with licensure pending status. This means that you want to be reviewed by the North Carolina Board for Licensed Professional Counselors for consideration of getting licensed before you actually have your transcript in hand and before you have your national counselor exam scores in hand. So the board only meets for quarterly, so 4 times a year. You want to keep an eye on their website for their calendar and time it so that you are submitting your LPCA paperwork with a request to be reviewed licensure pending status prior to their next board meeting after the end of your final internship. Again, these are all things that we're going to go over multiple times with you during the program, but this is really important for timeliness after graduation. You don't want there to be lag time between when you graduate and when the board receives your materials, and this licensure pending status is a student-friendly way that the board can review all of your application materials except for the 2 items that you are not likely to have in hand yet, and that would be your national counselor exam score and your transcript from your degree program. Usually if you graduate in May, your transcript would be available from UNCP early June, and then in December, if you graduate in December, your transcript's going to be available a month after that. So this gives you the opportunity to still be reviewed while you're waiting for those materials. You also want to start during your final internship semester of CNS 6120 of lining up some post-internship supervision. After internship, you are going to have your LPCA paperwork completed, and once you are an approved LPCA from the board, you will need to get your postgraduate supervision hours. These supervision hours are sometimes provided as part of a job that you get as an LPCA, but not all settings that hire LPCAs actually provide supervision as part of the employment package. So you can network with people in the community, other LPCs, and preferably LPCS credentialed people to provide that supervision to you. And then you also want to make sure that you're getting started with the job search process and not wasting any time there, staying connected to us on the listserv, UNCP Counseling Programs listserv. You can go in onto your settings there and make sure that your email address that you'll use after graduation is plugged in so that you can still get those emails from us that are job announcements and so forth. Also posted some job search resources onto Blackboard, so be sure to check those out. After graduation, the book did a great job of talking about some of the different settings where you'll end up working. Most everyone ends up working for an agency as an LPCA, where your population is primarily Medicaid folks. And then there are, of course, other counseling center, college counseling center jobs. These are some things that after graduation you just need to keep in mind, that you continue to have a liability policy. As a student member of the American Counseling Association, you get a free liability policy with your membership. And after you graduate, if you renew your membership to ACA, then you can have the new professional rate for your liability policy. A liability policy is for yourself is fairly cheap. I think under $50 or right at about $50 per year. That's something that you can include on your taxes as a professional expense. But even if you work for an agency that has their own liability policy, I always recommend that people maintain their own individual liability policy on top of that, because for $50 I think it's a sound investment to make sure that if you're ever in a legal situation with a client, if a client ever sues you, that your personal assets will be protected. You also need to make sure that you have good supervision, as I mentioned on the previous slide, that you continue to grow in your professional development by seeking out continuing education units, attending conferences, making sure that you are joining professional organizations at the state and the national level, and through those professional memberships you should be getting some free monthly CEUs, free online webinars, as well as reduced cost conference attendance and reduced cost webinars as well. And we'll talk about some of the different professional associations that I recommend throughout the semester. And the final bullet here is about skill development. This is when you go out into our degree really kind of prepares you to be a generalist, and many counseling centers in a college setting and in an agency setting are really looking for a generalist. It's a good idea to be a generalist with a specialty area. But that specialty area is something that I think comes over time, and I wouldn't worry about rushing to really define your specialization early on. It is something that will evolve over time.